Hi there. I am Jason Vey. I am President and CEO of Elflair Games. I'm here to talk to you about Night Shift, Veterans of the Supernatural Wars, our new Kickstarter. This is a Kickstarter that was designed by myself and Tim Brannan, who have we've both worked on countless supernatural, urban horror, modern RPGs over the years in a variety of systems. At the top of the Kickstarter, you can see a list of just a few of our credits. Tim actually came to me with this idea one day. We had both been playing around with different applications for old school mechanics for quite some time. And we've done things with sci-fi, we've done things with modern, we've done just messing around. And we realized that a lot of people were doing kids on bikes style games, what with Stranger Things being so popular these days. And Tim came to me with the idea that nobody was really doing urban fantasy horror type stuff these days. And he said, really, we've done so much of this, nobody could really do it like us. And I thought about it for a while, and I thought he was correct. And we decided to start working on it. And we applied some ideas that we'd been playing around with together and separately, just tossing around over the years. And came up with a pretty nifty system. It's very old school in its implementation. It is going to be an open game licensed book, so you'll recognize the 6 ability scores. A lot of the mechanics will look familiar to you. There are 3 mechanics at play in our system, which we're calling ogres. There's a little write-up at the bottom of the Kickstarter about what ogres stands for and the idea behind it. But the 3 mechanics are the D20 check, which is your combat mechanic, your ability check mechanic, and your save mechanic. It basically works by rolling a D20, adding applicable bonuses and modifiers, and trying to get a 20 or better. It's the exact same mechanic for ability checks, for saving throws, and for combat. The only difference is that ability checks and saving throws add what we call a check bonus, which starts at +1 at level 1 and goes up for so many levels. And then the combat uses an attack bonus instead of the check bonus, which varies by character class. And with combat, you'll also add AC to the roll. So that kind of that makes low AC better than high. So it's old school in that sense too. The next mechanic works for all class abilities and skills if you decide to use the optional skills mechanic in here, which is strictly optional. And that's a basic percentile system. You have a base percentile chance for something to work. You throw percentile dice, and if they come up equal to or less than the chance, then you succeed. You can modify the difficulty up or down, usually by increments of 5%, based on how tough something is, based on the skill of your opponent, etc., etc. The third mechanic is something that's largely used for the GM only, and that's what we call the Rule of 2. The Rule of 2 lets you adjudicate anything that you don't otherwise have a rule for. What if somebody who doesn't have a move silently skill percentage tries to sneak up on somebody? The GM might roll a 1d6, and if it comes up 1 or 2, the person they're trying to sneak up on hears them. Meanwhile, the person who has the skill would get 2 chances. They would get to roll their skill, and if they fail their skill, they still get the Rule of 2 roll. So that still gives the advantage to the person with the skill check. That's basically it. That's the system. It's very intuitive, it's very straightforward, and it gives a quick benchmark as to what's being done at any given time. If you're making a percentile check, it's a class ability. If you're making a D20 check, it's probably combat related, and so on and so forth. So what is Night Shift then? Night Shift is designed to run any style of horror or urban fantasy supernatural game that you like in any era, from the Middle Ages all the way up to the present, or even science fiction. Naturally, as with any large open generic game, there will be a little bit of design work that will have to be done by the GM based on the setting you choose. But we tried to keep the system as open and easy and intuitive as possible to make that a snap to do. So we have a number of character classes that represent archetypes in this type of story. You have your chosen one, which is like your supernaturally powered person who is destined to defeat the forces of darkness. You have your veteran, who is a normal person, but who has hunted the supernatural for a long time and built up a set of skills and abilities that enable them to uniquely battle vampires and werewolves and such. We have the witch and warlock, who are your occultists and spellcasters. We have the sage, who is your person who's knowledgeable about all things supernatural. There is the survivor, who is just your normal average person who has seen something they can't ever forget, and out of fear or determination or whatever, built their own set of skills that enable them to survive when the supernatural comes around. Then we have psychics and theosophists, which theosophists are sort of traditional necromancers. They're spirit channelers, and they control the spirits of the dead. Psychics have psychic powers of various abilities. The archetypes for classes are very broad. They're very open. They enable you to interpret the class however you like. There's nothing, for example, that says the chosen one has to be one girl in every generation. It can be, just some doofus who works in a department store and happens to stumble upon an old book in a cabin in the woods, for example. So that's basically that's the basics of the game. Again, the character classes, the mechanics, the ability scores, they're all going to look very simple. I should mention that when we're talking about the percentile abilities for character classes, that applies across the board, even to spells. So when you cast spells, you're going to make a percentile roll for your spell casting based on how difficult the spell is you're trying to cast. Spells are still structured in levels, and the spell's level determines its difficulty to cast. So it modifies your base casting chance up or down by the level of the spell. We have an optional madness system. We have an optional corruption system for magic. We also have different levels of play. So you can choose to play realistic, which is just kind of our generic term for your medium standard level of play. It's not necessarily actually realistic, but that's what we call it. And then there's the cinematic level of play, which is over the top heroics. And then there's the gritty level of play, which would be your dark, brutal, deadly type. And you don't have to choose a blanket level of play. You can select certain cinematic options, certain gritty options, certain realistic options. So you can really build the kind of game you want to play specifically. So we've really gone to great lengths to make this game super easy to play and also super easy to customize right out of the gate. So we're really excited about the game, about getting it to you. The system is going to be the new house system for Elflair Games. And if this Kickstarter does well, you can expect a lot more support for this game, and you can expect a second edition of Spellcraft and Swordplay, which is our fantasy game. I've been working on that for quite some time. It will use the Ogres system, or be powered by Ogres, as we like to say. And it's going to be a lot more sword and sorcery focused. But right now, the focus is on Night Shift. We really want to get this out here. We're really proud of it. We could just go print on demand with it. That would be easy enough to do, but we really think it deserves the kind of treatment that a fully funded printed edition deserves. We want to give it good art. We want to give it good layout. We want to give it a nice hardcover treatment with a real print run so that we can do conventions and we can really take Elflair Games to the next level, and join the ranks of small publishers out there. So that's about all. We really hope this excites you for the game. We hope that you will pledge. Let's get this thing backed and let's take it to the next level. Thanks for listening, and thanks for your support.